The cruiser's tires crunched over loose gravel as Tyler Hanna guided it down the winding mountain road. His eyes, weary from the long night shift, scanned the dense pine forest on either side. The radio crackled with static. Reception was always poor this far out. At 30, Tyler was already feeling the weight of his badge. He'd never planned on being a state trooper, but when the Gold Rush mine shut down 3 years ago, it was either this or leave Pinecrest altogether. His family had been miners for generations. Now, he was one of the few in town with a steady paycheck. The first rays of dawn were just starting to peek over the mountaintops when the radio suddenly came to life. All units, be advised, we're getting multiple reports of unusual activity in the Sawback Ridge area, hikers reporting strange noises and large animal sightings. Tyler frowned. Sawback Ridge was just a few miles ahead. Probably some kids playing pranks or campers spooked by a bear. Still, it was worth checking out. He was about to respond when a dark shape darted across the road ahead. Tyler slammed on the brakes, the cruiser skidding to a halt. "What the hell?" he muttered, peering into the pre-dawn gloom. There, at the edge of his headlights, stood something. It was vaguely wolf-like, but massive, easily 7 feet tall, and it was standing on 2 legs. Tyler's hand instinctively went to his holster as he slowly opened the car door. The creature's head snapped towards him, and he froze. Multiple eyes Tyler counted at least 5 glowed with an eerie bioluminescence. Its fur seemed to shimmer and shift colors in the dim light. "This is Officer Hanna with the Idaho State Police," Tyler called out, his voice shakier than he'd like. "I'm going to need you to identify yourself." The creature's muzzle split in what could only be described as a grin, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. When it spoke, the voice was like gravel in a blender. "Your kind amuses us, little man," it growled. "So quick to assert your imagined authority." Tyler drew his weapon, leveling it at the creature. "I said identify yourself. What are you?" The thing threw back its head and let out a sound that was half howl, half laugh. "We are your new masters, human. Your world is ours now." "Like hell it is," Tyler snarled, squeezing the trigger. The gunshot echoed through the trees. The creature didn't even flinch as the bullet struck its chest. Instead, it looked down at the small hole in its fur, then back at Tyler. Its eyes gleamed with malicious amusement. "Primitive toys," it sneered. "Did you really think your little metal pebbles could harm us?" In that moment, Tyler realized he was in way over his head. He dove back into the cruiser just as the creature lunged, its claws raking across the door with a screech of tearing metal. Tyler slammed the car into reverse, tires spinning as he backed away. The last thing he saw before turning the car around was the creature standing in the middle of the road, its haunting laugh echoing in his ears. As he sped back towards town, Tyler's mind raced. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't alone, and Pinecrest had no idea what was coming. Tyler's cruiser screeched to a halt in front of Pinecrest's town hall, a weathered building that had seen better days. His hand shook as he killed the engine, the memory of those glowing eyes still fresh in his mind. Inside, he found Mayor Millie Hawkins and a handful of bleary-eyed town council members. They'd gathered after his frantic radio call, but the skepticism on their faces was clear. "Aliens, Tyler?" "Really?" Millie sighed, rubbing her temples. "Look, I know times have been tough since the mine closed, but..." "Damn it, Millie, I know what I saw." Tyler slammed his palms on the table, making everyone jump. "That thing shrugged off a bullet like it was nothing. We need to evacuate, call in the National Guard, something." Before anyone could respond, screams erupted from outside. Tyler raced to the window, his blood running cold at the sight. 3 of the wolf-like creatures were stalking down Main Street, their fur shimmering in the early morning light. "Oh my God," Millie whispered, her face pale. Tyler's police training kicked in. "Everyone, stay calm. We need to get people to safety. The old mine, we can use the tunnels." The next few hours were chaos. Tyler coordinated with the few other law enforcement officers in town, directing people towards the mine entrance. Gunshots rang out as some tried to fight back, but just like before, the bullets seemed to have no effect. By nightfall, what remained of Pinecrest's population, about 200 people, were huddled in the main chamber of the abandoned gold mine. The air was thick with fear and the musty smell of disuse. "What do we do now?" someone asked, their voice echoing in the cavernous space. Tyler looked around at the scared faces. These were his neighbors, his friends, people he'd grown up with. And now they were looking to him for answers. "We fight," he said, his voice firm. "Those things might be stronger, faster, but this is our home. We know these tunnels better than anyone." A murmur went through the crowd. Tyler could see the doubt, but also a glimmer of hope. "But our guns don't work," protested Bill Fletcher, the town's hardware store owner. "How are we supposed to fight them?" Tyler's eyes fell on a pile of old mining equipment in the corner: pickaxes, shovels, dynamite. A plan started to form in his mind. "We use what we know," he said, a grim smile forming on his face. "They might laugh at our primitive weapons, but I bet they've never faced a determined miner with a pickaxe." He turned to the crowd, his voice rising with conviction. "They think we're weak, that we'll just roll over and die. But they don't know us. We're Pinecrest. Our families dug this mine with their bare hands. We've weathered tough times before, and we'll do it again." Tyler picked up a shovel, testing its weight. "They want our town? Our home? Well, I say we bury them in it." A cheer went up from the crowd, fear giving way to determination. As Tyler began outlining his plan, he felt a spark of hope. It was crazy, probably suicidal, but it was all they had. The aliens might have advanced technology and superhuman strength, but they were about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating human ingenuity and the power of a community fighting for its survival. The old mine creaked and groaned, dust motes dancing in the dim light of salvaged headlamps. Tyler crouched in a narrow side tunnel, his hands clenched around the worn handle of a pickaxe. The air was thick with tension and the acrid smell of fear. "They're coming," whispered Millie, her eyes wide in the darkness. The mayor had insisted on being part of the frontline team, despite Tyler's objections. Tyler nodded grimly. "Remember the plan. Let them get deep into the main shaft before we spring the trap." Hours earlier, they had sent out a small group as bait, making enough noise to draw the aliens' attention. Now, they waited. The first howl echoed through the tunnels, sending shivers down Tyler's spine. Then came the sound of heavy footfalls and that terrible, guttural language. Scared humans, one of the alien voices growled, the sound carrying easily in the confined space. "We smell your fear." Tyler gritted his teeth, fighting the urge to rush out. "Stick to the plan," he reminded himself. The aliens passed their hiding spot, 5 massive shapes loping down the main tunnel. Tyler held his breath, counting in his head. When he reached 30, he gave the signal. "Now," he shouted. "They can know." The tunnel exploded into action. Miners who had been hiding behind support beams rushed out, swinging pickaxes and shovels. The aliens, caught off guard, roared in surprise and anger. Tyler charged forward, aiming his pickaxe at the nearest creature's leg. The alien was fast, but in the narrow confines of the mine, it couldn't dodge effectively. The pickaxe bit deep, drawing a howl of pain and rage. All around him, the battle raged. Guns might not have worked, but it turned out that good old-fashioned mining tools could hurt these things. Bill Fletcher, the hardware store owner, was wielding a shovel like a club, keeping one of the aliens at bay. But the aliens were learning, adapting. One of them grabbed a miner, tossing him aside like a rag doll. Another was using its claws to deflect blows, its eyes gleaming with malicious intelligence. "Fall back," Tyler yelled, seeing the tide of battle turning. "To the main shaft." The miners retreated, drawing the aliens deeper into the mine. As they reached the vast open space of the main shaft, Tyler saw Millie nod. It was time for the second phase. Now Millie screamed. From hidden alcoves high up the shaft walls, miners lit fuses on bundles of dynamite. The aliens looked up, momentarily confused by the hissing sound. "Run," Tyler bellowed, grabbing Millie's arm and pulling her towards the exit tunnel. The explosions came in rapid succession, shaking the entire mine. Rocks and debris rained down as support beams cracked and gave way. The aliens' howls of rage turned to screams of fear as the ceiling collapsed on them. Tyler and the others ran for their lives, the tunnel behind them filling with dust and falling rocks. They burst out into the cool night air, gasping and coughing. For a long moment, everyone stood in shocked silence, staring at the mine entrance. Then, slowly, realization dawned. We did it, Millie said, her voice filled with disbelief and hope. Tyler nodded, his body aching but his spirit soaring. We did. We beat them. As the dust settled and the full impact of their victory sank in, Tyler knew their ordeal wasn't over. There would be bodies to bury, both human and alien, and a town to rebuild. But looking at the determined faces around him, he knew that Pinecrest would survive. They had faced the impossible and won, armed with nothing more than the tools of their trade and the strength of their community. The aliens had laughed at their primitive weapons, but in the end, it was those very tools that had saved them all. The dawn broke over Pinecrest, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. Tyler stood at the edge of town, his weary eyes scanning the tree line. The events of the past 24 hours felt like a surreal dream, but the destruction around him was all too real. Any sign of more of them, Millie asked, joining him with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Tyler shook his head, accepting the offered mug gratefully. Nothing. I think we got them all. They stood in silence, sipping their coffee and watching the town slowly come to life. The air was filled with the sounds of hammering and sawing as people began repairs on damaged buildings. We should start clearing the mine, Tyler said after a while. Make sure those things are really dead. Millie nodded. And give our own a proper burial. The work was grim and exhausting. They found the aliens' bodies crushed under tons of rock, their bioluminescent fur now dull and lifeless. Tyler couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction as they dragged the massive corpses out of the mine. What do we do with them? Bill Fletcher asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Tyler considered for a moment. We bury them, deep, where no one will ever find them. They chose a remote spot in the mountains, far from any hiking trails or roads. As they dug, Tyler couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The very tools the aliens had mocked were now consigning them to their final resting place. As the last shovelful of dirt fell on the alien grave, Tyler heard the distant sound of helicopters. Looks like the cavalry's finally arriving, Millie said dryly. Sure enough, within the hour, the town was swarming with government agents and military personnel. They asked endless questions, took samples, and generally turned Pinecrest upside down. Tyler found himself in the town hall, facing a stern-looking man in a dark suit. So, Mr. Hanna, the man said, his voice clipped and official. You expect us to believe that your town fought off an alien invasion with mining equipment? Tyler met the man's gaze steadily. Believe what you want. We know what happened. The agent's eyes narrowed. And where are these alien bodies now? Tyler shrugged. Must have been completely crushed in the cave-in. Nothing left to find. He could tell the agent didn't believe him, but without evidence, there was little they could do. After a week of fruitless investigation, the government people packed up and left, taking their helicopters and official statements with them. Life in Pinecrest slowly returned to a new normal. The mine remained closed, but talks began about reopening it not for gold, but as a tourist attraction. Come see where the aliens invaded, Millie joked, but Tyler could see the wheels turning in her head. One evening, about a month after the invasion, Tyler found himself back at the spot where he'd first encountered the alien. The road had been repaired, erasing all signs of that terrifying night. As he stood there, watching the sun set behind the mountains, Tyler felt a mix of pride and unease. They had faced the unimaginable and survived, proving that sometimes the oldest tools and the strongest bonds of community were the best weapons against any threat. But as the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Tyler couldn't help but wonder, were there more of them out there? And if so, would Earth's primitive defenses be enough next time? With a deep breath, he turned back towards town. Whatever the future held, he knew Pinecrest would face it together, pickaxes and shovels at the ready. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.